Group Hug is a tactic that you can use in EDH. Give everybody a lot of cards, a lot of mana, a lot of resources, and build your deck accordingly, knowing that you're just going to have this overabundance. I wanted to build an EDH deck that was like a group hug to death, where you hug your opponents and then they slowly realize they're being poisoned and all of their resources are being drained. This is a really morbid opening for this. Let's look at my Kroxa Titan of Death's Hunger EDH deck, discard strategy, and group hug to death. Video starts right now. Special thanks to our Patreon supporters who power our channel. Check out our Patreon for monthly giveaways, exclusive content, and even a starring role in our fan fight series. Link in the description below. Hello and welcome to the day. Thank you for spending your time with us. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel Are Magic. I am Joel. If you liked the video by the end of it, consider subscribing. It would really help us out. Let's go ahead and jump into my Kroxa Titan of Death's Hunger. This is the deck itself. Over here in our first column, we've got some mana rocks. Over here, we've got some discard payoffs. We've got some graveyard stuff and some card draw here. We've got some removal. This is actually forcing them to discard things. Stack there. This is our removal-ish stack. We've got some utility stuff. And then we've got our group hug to death stack. I'm going to go through each of these columns real quick. If you want to go ahead and jump into the gameplay, we're not going to spend too long on this, but I do have the timestamp down in the description if you just want to go into the gameplay and see how the deck works. So we've got a bunch of cards that have payoffs for discards. Cards like Megrim, whenever an opponent discards a card, it deals 2 damage. We've got that ability twice with Liliana's Caress. Bloodchief Ascension, whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere that player loses 2 life, you gain 2. Quest for the Nihil Stone, if a opponent starts their turn with no cards in hand, you can have them lose 5 life. Things like Raider's Wake, whenever they discard a card, the player loses 2 life, and at the beginning of the end step, if you attacked with a creature, you can make them discard a card. We want a lot of payoffs like this because we're going to be casting Kroxa as many times as we can. When it enters a battlefield, sack it unless it escaped. Whenever Kroxa enters a battlefield or attacks, each opponent discards a card, then each opponent who didn't discard a card, a non-land card this way, loses 3 life. At the outset, it seems fairly humble, but I've just had an absolute ball playing this deck. Using cards like Siphon Mine, which seem fairly humble, but each player discards a card, you get 3 triggers, you get to draw 3 cards. This is so good. You get to cast cards that are super powerful, like Animate Dead or Reanimate or Unearth. You can bring Kroxa back to the battlefield really quick with a card like Unearth. So humble, you can cycle it away if you don't need it, but there were turns where I would cast Kroxa, have to sack it because I cast it from the command zone, bring it back from the graveyard, get the double trigger, everybody's discarding cards, everybody's losing life to Megrim. I'm triggering Nihil Stone when it gets back around to their turn. Past that, I really like this group hug to death strategy. Run cards like Exsanguinate, Torment of Hailfire, Rakdos's Return, Grey Merchant, each opponent, stuff that says each opponent. You know, anybody can activate this on Zancha whenever that creature comes into play. Vile Smashers, dealing damage to random opponents. Herald of Anguish, each opponent discards a card at the beginning of your end step. Archfiend of Despair, this one's so huge. I was able to, there was almost a turn in the gameplay that you're going to see where I pulled an Archfiend of Despair actually out of our opponent's graveyard, even though we do run it, and I was going to cast an Exsanguinate, and then Archfiend was going to finish everybody off. Sire of Insanity, just have everybody pitch their hand. You've got stuff to draw cards over here. You've got, you know, Siphon Mine, and you've got Erebos. We've got some ways to do that. So that is the deck pretty much. We run a Panharmonicon so we can maybe double the ability. We run a Chainer since we're going to be pitching stuff into the graveyard anyway. We run Chandra because that up ability says 2 damage to each opponent, also adds some mana, and if you can possibly get that emblem off, it's just incredible. In World Gorger Dragon, exile all other permanents. It's board wipe protection. You know, they've got to deal with that 7/7 flying trampler if it's on the battlefield, and then all your stuff comes back and hits the battlefield again. Magus of the Wheel has been an MVP. Make everybody discard their hand and redraw 7 cards. The deck itself runs pretty well. It's a blast to play. Let's jump into some gameplay and you can check it out for yourself. So we win the die roll. We get to go first. That's pretty fun. We see our first hand and we don't have any black mana in it. We do wake up with a Soul Ring, a Removal, a Sangromancer, Mountain, and an Ancient Tomb. but we decide to mull, and of course we get a worse hand. We don't want to mull again and go down to 6. We do have a land that taps for both. We do wake up with our Soul Ring again, which is pretty crazy, and we've got Dark Deal to get us out of a jam in case it goes too long. Our opponents are playing Kambal, Kalia, and Atraxa. Just judging power threat right out of the rip, Atraxa is probably the biggest threat across the battlefield, although Kalia left unchecked can go pretty hard. And by the end of the video, you'll see by the end of this game, Kambal ends up being the MVP of the entire game. First draw is a Panharmonicon. Don't love seeing that at this point. Really wanted to see some mana. Our opponents are playing their land, but like I said, we've got Dark Deal out of the chute, so we can possibly just pitch our hand, draw some mana, throw our opponents off of their opening strategy, and really all we need to do is draw another colored mana, either black or red, and we can cast our commander right out of the gate. Love for him to hit on 2, start making the opponent's discard. We draw Rakdos Return. So we'll get our Soul Ring out there, we'll roll our eyes, we're set up for Dark Deal next turn. Maybe we draw a land, we can go with Sangromancer, and we are playing on MTGO, so we are just going to tap our stuff down so that we can auto-yield and save our time bank. Another note about this deck, if you are playing it on MTGO, you're going to want to right-click on your commander. I actually screwed this up one point in the game, that's why I learned the hard way that it's a problem. Right-click on your commander and make sure that you have selected that Kroxa goes to the graveyard instead of back to the command zone, that he stays in the graveyard. This commander doesn't have to worry about commander tax if it only goes to the graveyard and doesn't get exiled. Obviously, if they stuff it, or if it goes into exile, it's going to get sent back to the command zone, but that's fine. It's a 2-cost commander out of the command zone. You know, we can afford to cast it for 2 and then 4. That's not even bad. You know, 6 and 8's not even bad when you look at some commanders. I mean, Atraxa going away and coming back is 6 and then 8 and then 10. We draw one of my favorite planeswalkers in the entire game. Angrath is a pet card of mine, and it says each opponent discards a card, so it really works for this deck. And look at that, we Dark Deal, and we don't get a single land. At this point, we're rolling our eyes a little bit because we've got Lightning Greaves across the field. Our opponent with the Plateau, I believe it is, and the Blood Crypt is not ramped, but Calvin, our top right opponent, has ramped a little bit with the Arcane Signet, so we're still keeping up. Kambal hits the field and gets Lightning Greaved. At this point, when I was playing the game, I'm going, no big deal. Some kind of board wipe will catch Kambal. Kambal ends up staying the entire game, and I gotta say, after watching a game with Kambal on the battlefield the entire time, and also not being that difficult of a commander to recast if it gets killed, I am fairly interested in building a Kambal deck at some point when the whole newness of Theros Beyond wears off and I'm no longer building all of these fantastic new legends that we've got as commander decks. I'll tell you, one of my favorite decks, probably my favorite EDH deck, is my Erebos God of the Dead deck, which is Indestructible Greed, essentially. I haven't even started. That's one of my favorite ones, and I've also got a Keranos EDH deck, blue-red, good stuff deck, and I haven't. We're gonna look at Shock Johnson's hand. Yeah, we looked at it, and I haven't even built any of the gods from this set yet. Mostly because I was a little underwhelmed by the multicolor gods, and I just hadn't gotten around to building a monocolor. You know, Thassa would really be good. Have a indestructible blink. And also Erebos, drawing cards, and Heliod, that's the one I really want to play. You know, putting +1/+1 counters on stuff and gaining life. You know, just play big life gain in EDH would be a hell of a time. Right now we're just getting through the opening turns of the game. We've got Soul Ring across the battlefield now, so we've got an opponent on 5 mana, we've got an opponent on 4 mana up in our right. We are sitting on 3, but we really need some lands. We need to draw some lands. We've got a Siphon Mind, which is pretty nice, because if we can just get 1 mana, 1 untapped mana, on this turn, we can play Siphon Mind, and we can make everybody discard a card and we draw. Fortunately, we just draw an Arcane Signet, so we've just got to go the slow way. We've got the Canyon Slough and the Arcane Signet now, which means that we do have the mana to cast our commander, but we can go ahead and get our quest for the Nihil Stone out there first, because you only need 2 quest counters on Quest for the Nihil Stone for it to be activated. And if we cast our commander once, we're going to get 3 quest counters because each opponent has to discard a card. Another way you could go there is Magus of the Wheel, but yet again, you want some kind of discard payoff before you play a card like that, because you're going to get this huge right hook with the discard, and you want a big payoff for that so that you can take advantage. Excuse me, we will tap down our Arcane Signet here. Again, we're playing on MTGO, so we want to save our time bank for when we really need it, and the opportunity cost of staying open with that 1 black mana in an EDH game on turn, what are we on, turn 4 right now? It's just not worth it, especially when we don't actually have anything to play. We got a Fertilid up in the top right. It's a counters deck. It's an Atraxa deck, so we're going to see stuff like that. Our opponent up in the top left hasn't really done much of anything except for play their commander and get a couple of triggers off of that. They are up to 48 life. We're at 34. Our middle opponent's at 32 and our right's at 37 with 2 commander damage. We're also sitting with 2 commander damage. Don't think that's going to be a huge thing, but you know, you never know. We see a Mystic Remora up in the top right. It's a little concerning, but for this deck, you know, if they have stuff to let us discard, that's a great thing. You'll see when you build a discard deck, especially in a non-EDH format, that one of the problems is to achieve the payoffs of the discards, you need cards in your opponent's hand to discard. And once they're out, and you need to have your payoffs that reward having empty hands, like Quest for the Nihil Stone, and not so much payoffs for that reward making them discard cards. We see another discard payoff, and we've got 4 mana. We don't, however, have enough mana to... We only have 2 colored sources of mana, essentially. Our other 2 of our 4 is colorless. So right here, we've got 4 mana. We can play Siphon Mind and hopefully draw some more lands. You know, we're not going to, obviously we're not paying the 4 for the Mystic Remora. This is something we end up having to click through. We should have just auto-passed on all of these, but Siphon Mind's going to go off. Everybody's going to discard a card. We're going to get some quest counters on Nihil Stone and hopefully draw the lands that we need. All right, we drew 1. We also see a Reanimate, so we've got some low mana cost in here too. We immediately start looking for some good targets. Instead of clicking through using Quest for the Nihil Stone's ability, we get way too worried about this Reanimate. And then we're like, oh, wait, I guess everybody's waiting on me. Yep, we'll put the quest counters on there. Got it. We get the Urborg, and we look through. We've got some big options, but none of them really do anything. We're losing life. We need a big threat in the air that can block. And we were looking for a life linker as well to try and start offsetting Kambal because we play a lot of cards like that. What we can do, however, because we are going to lose the life from Reanimate, is play Kakusho. So Kakusho is going to net us 15 life when our Dragon Spirit eventually dies, and we only have to lose, I believe, 6 life for casting it. We very seriously considered Gisela because the damage double effect that's on there, but we don't know how soon a board wipe's going to happen, and we can get an immediate payoff from a semi-immediate payoff from Kakusho if the board wipe were to happen from either our top right or top left opponents. So we go with that. Now we've got a blocker. We were going to have to lose life regardless of what we picked, and we want to pick something probably 6 mana or more to get a solid enough payoff and get something very powerful onto the battlefield. Seems pretty, it's small, but, it's humble. It's a humble choice, but I think getting that 15 life is more worth it, especially when we can block Comball and we can block the flyer across the battlefield from our middle opponent. So our top left opponent plays a Greed. They are slowly just climbing. I mean, you look at their life total, they're already up at 56. We're all sitting at mid-20s for me and low 30s for our middle and right opponents. Our middle opponent passes. They don't have anything they wanted to play that turn. They got 3 cards in hand. Kalia wasn't played. It is our top right opponent's turn 5 now is where we're at in the game. So as you can see, we've got some very low converted mana cost stuff in this deck that can filter us through our hand and filter us through our deck and get to the cards that we need to get to. We also run the 1D tutor so that we can go find whatever card we might need at that time. Our top right opponent has now dropped Atraxa onto the battlefield and is putting their counter onto the Dreadship Reef so that they can proliferate that at the end of next turn. And we're still just trying to build up our payoffs. Going into our turn 6, we've got some options, and we're finally drawing some mana. We've got Megrim, we've got Liliana's Caress, we have access to 6 mana here. 5 of it will be for Megrim and Liliana's, and we've got 1 mana left over after that. So at this point, we make the decision to okay, right there. Sorry, Command Zone instead of Graveyard. That should be selected. Yes. Graveyard, not Command Zone. And then for some reason, I unselect it. Like a doofus. We get 1 payoff out there in addition to our Quest for the Nihil Stone. We've got the Unearth ready to go. You can see up in the top left, our opponent has 3 cards, middle 3 cards, top right 5 cards. We can get them to go down 2 cards here. All of them lose 4 life. Quest for the Nihil Stone is going to get a ton of triggers. But at this point, it's not very necessary, And it sets us up to, next turn, play our Magus of the Wheel and play Liliana's Caress. We stack our triggers on there. Each opponent's going to lose 2 life. All the Quest for the Nihil Stone triggers, sure. We'll put the counters on there. Not really necessary at this point. It is achieved. The quest is complete. And I'm going, whoops. That was not what we intended to do. Kind of wanted to unearth there. And now we see, oh look. If you right click on it and then click on Graveyard instead of Command Zone, and when you mouse over it again, that is the option that is selected, you're good. You're good to go. Top left, we've gotten a little bit, it's been a beneficial game for us so far. Our top right opponent hasn't gone off crazy like Atraxa can. Our top left opponent has just been building up their ground like we have, getting some of their payoffs, getting some of their triggers going. They've got a Greed, they've got 56 life, so they've got plenty of life to be drawing. And next turn, we should be ready to do, again, what we wanted to do, which was play Kroxa, sack Kroxa, unearth Kroxa, get that double trigger, get those triggers rolling. Our middle opponent this turn seems to want to play something, and they seem to want to play their commander. So Kalia hits the battlefield. No haste as of yet. They still do have their add 1 mana of any color, but it looks like we are passing into combat and through their turn, and then we will go to Atraxa's turn. Life totals. Towards the end of turn 6, middle opponent's down to 30, top right opponent's at 29, and we are at 22. We are going to need to worry about that at some point. We're still fine. Don't have a ton of double mana doublers on the battlefield. Don't have any right now. We're not in trouble of getting 1 turn sanguinated or anything like that. Our opponent on the right plays Pier, so they can go search up their Toothy. We've got 5 cards in their hand now. We've got our opponent on the top left down to 1 card in hand, and our middle opponent at 3. It's very beneficial. This is one of the things that this deck does, is try to keep your hand full while emptying your opponent's hands and putting them in top deck mode. You don't really want to be in top deck mode. It's not that terrible in Commander if people are good deck builders, because there will be spells that, you know, refill their hand, go get that exact card out of their library, things like that. Atraxa is swinging this turn. We're assuming it's not coming at us. It's going at the biggest life total up there in the top left. They're moving to their end step and proliferating, and it will become our turn again. Another land! Yay! We have options! So now we're on 7 mana. We can Liliana's. We've got... It's going to cost us 4 to Kroxa this turn, but we've got that across 5 mana. We're good. So it's 4 to do Kroxa and 1 to unearth. We do... Yep, absolutely. Comball, yet again, doing work. Absolutely been bleeding us out. We get a double payoff for this set of triggers here, and we're actually in a little bit better of a situation. You know, we could have escaped Kroxa there, and look, yeah, now we're making sure. We're making sure that it goes to the right zone. We've got double payoffs here for the Kroxa, and so we're in a good situation. We could have escaped it. It is black, black, red, red to escape it, and we were sitting on the right mana to do that. And plus, we had enough cards in the graveyard to do that. But that's what we're going to do next turn now. This turn, we're going to play Kroxa, let the triggers go off, sacrifice him, unearth him, do it again. Clickety, 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 click. Here we go. Get the triggers stacked up there. Sure, doesn't really matter. Get the Megrims, get the Liliana's Caresses. Quests dump on top of that. We'll put more counters on the quest for the Nihil Stone, which isn't really necessary. This is what we want. We want this 2 mana every time, 2 damage, excuse me, every time they have to discard a card. Yes, yes. Each opponent, bleed, bleed. That is the point of this deck. Kroxa gets sacked. We've got Unearth. We're going to sack. We're going to play the black mana. Play the Unearth. Mystic Remora. Comball. Yeah. We get it. Our opponent does have Greed, and so they could stay off the quest for the Nihil Stone, but they decide to draw a card there, and so that they have a card to discard. You know, I guess they didn't want to lose the 3 life. Not really sure. But here's a whole nother round, and we start bleeding each other down, bleeding each opponent down. We've got Lightning Greaves, we've got Magus of the Wheel. You can, you know, for 5, 6, 7 mana there, which we're sitting on, have a fun little thing where we play Magus of the Wheel, play the Greaves, attach the Greaves, use the ability. Each player discards a hand and draws 7 cards, and we're back into it. Triggers, triggers, triggers. Everybody's taking damage. Everybody's taking damage. It didn't escape, so we did have to sack it, but we have the option to sack it next turn. Quest for the Nihil Stone is going to go off because our top left opponent has no cards in hand. They're going to take 5 damage, and then we pass. It was a fairly productive turn there. We did a lot of damage around the horn. 4, 9, something like that. We did 9 to our top left opponent, 4 to each of our other opponents, pulling cards out of their hand. Our middle opponent's down to 1 card in hand. Our top right, they have the Mystic Remora, but we do have them down to 4 cards in hand, which is nice. I've seen much worse, much more intense hands of cards from a Mystic Remora on turn 3 or 4 they played that. And now we're rounding the table at turn 7. Our opponent in the top left stays untapped. They have 1 card in hand, but they do have Greed, so we have to watch that. And we've got a middle opponent that's got 2 cards in hand, but, you know, the mana to play pretty much whatever they want to play. And what they want to play is Cataclysm. So this turns the game on its head just a little bit. We've got to make some choices here. we are going to choose an artifact, an enchantment, a creature, and a land, and sacrifice everything else. So obviously we're keeping the Kakusho. It's the only one we've got. We can either choose to keep the Quest, the Megrim, or the Liliana's Caress. Now I have to tell you, Megrim is one of the first cards that I encountered and came to love when I first started playing the game. I think that's a reason why this deck excites me so much and I have so much fun playing it. So we choose to keep the Megrim. We could have chosen to keep the Quest, but with Mystic Remora on the field, we didn't really like that wasn't going to hit as many times as Megrim. With Mystic Remora and Greed, by the way. We got Greed over on the top left, and we got Mystic Remora on the right. So Quest for the Nihil Stone loses some potency. You see there our opponent our top left opponent in response to the Cataclysm, paid 6 mana, it looks like, 5 mana, it looks like, and drew up a hand of cards before we have to lose lands. We're going to choose a land that taps for both of our colors, our Soul Ring, obviously, and we're going to keep our Megrim along with our creature. Just don't like that Mystic Remora and Greed are there. Obviously, they could choose to... no, they will choose to keep those around because that's the only enchantment top left's got. And, yep, it's the only enchantment top right's got, so we know those are staying. So, the game becomes simplified quite a bit. Top left opponent is at 37. Middle opponent's at 20. Top right opponent's at 21, and we are at 18. Not great. Not great. But, spoiler alert, we are going to get to rebuild a lot faster than everyone else. So, our opponent in the top right has got some mana to work with, which is to their benefit. They've got a lot of counters on the Dreadship Reef. They've got the Fertilid that can go search up more lands for them. Our middle opponent has now got an indestructible creature, because we are at less than half of our life total. And our top left opponent has still just got Kambal sitting there, taking taxes. Taxman going around, taxing everybody's goods. Wake up with a land. We've got Magus, we've got Lightning Greaves, we've also got Kroxa on the in the graveyard, but we can't cast that yet. We don't have enough mana to cast Magus and Lightning Greaves. So we can get Magus out there. You know, I think everybody, with maybe the exception of our top left opponent, is going to... Oh yeah, look at that. Is going to be completely okay with us Magusing. If you see Mystic Remora didn't survive, I believe they did not choose to pay the mana for that, up in the top right. So our top left opponent is now the best set to have a ton of resources. Then things get a little annoying and Blind Obedience hits the battlefield, so anything we play is going to be coming in tapped, which is kind of a bummer, but we're still sitting on Kakusho. We can still, as soon as Kakusho dies, gain 15 life and be right back in this. You know, we'll jump right back up there in life total and be almost at the same life total that Shock Johnson is at. If I'm doing that math right, 33, 15 and 15 is 30 plus 3 is 8. Yes, okay. I can still do basic math. Our middle opponent is not going to kill our Magus, most likely. It's our top right opponent's turn 8 right now. They also, I'm assuming, want us to cast the Magus, but they're going to cast as many things out of their hand, I would think, as they possibly can, because they know that that is going off next turn. Use some of their mana off of their Dreadship Reef. They had 5 counters on it from the time that Atraxa was on the battlefield. They can add any combination of black and blue. They choose to add 5 blue and play their Loyal Guardian. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have your commander, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Not a bad lieutenant, especially for Atraxa. Enters the battlefield tapped because of Blind Obedience. Kambal taking taxes, hardened scales, hits the battlefield. Kambal takes a little bit of tax, and top right opponent says, I'm good. Pass to you, Mr. Discard. Ooh, baby. We draw maybe the best top deck that we could have had there, knowing that we're going to make our top left opponent discard 5, middle opponent discard 2, and top right opponent discard 2, and that is Waste Not. Waste Not is going to give us a payoff for every single card that is discarded by our opponents. Creature cards turn into 2/2s for us, lands turn into mana for us, and non-creatures turn into drawn cards for us, which is just huge. So, you see this. We get some triggers. All of our Megrim triggers are going up there. We get a little weird glitch happening, but gotta stack all our Megrims up there. We're gonna get a ton of mana. Hopefully, we'll see. We'll see exactly where we end up with 4 mana triggers, 2 zombie triggers, and we draw 5 cards, which is just awesome for us. We're going to get the pick of the litter with our cards. We've got a Dockside Extortionist that we can play with some of this mana, especially if we can draw a command tower. Especially if we can draw a land that taps for red, which is the only way we would have been able to play our Dockside Extortionist. Everybody's going to take some damage. We've got the Carnarium, yeah, but we want to play Dockside Extortionist this turn. We've got 4 mana sitting. We could play Chainer, or we could play Extortionist and get, if I'm counting correctly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 treasure tokens. Unfortunately, because of freaking blind obedience, they all come into play tapped. So, yep, 6. So we are going to have to wait until next turn. We've got 3 mana left over. It's all swampy, bompy mana. So we can, just in the interest, because we're going to have to discard cards anyway, we might as well dump as much onto the battlefield as we can. Play Asylum Visitor, which is one of our empty hand payoffs, like I was talking about. And then we got to discard down. We're not going to use that last black mana. Don't need it. Don't have anything we can do with it. Everybody passes around. We got to discard down, and then we can pass. Like I said, we were able to, because of Waste Not and the Magus of the Wheel, we were able to rebuild faster than any opponent could from that Cataclysm, I believe it was. We're not really in love with the idea of slowing ourselves down at this point, so we pitched some stuff that would just slow us down. Bloodfell Caves, the only reason we keep it is because it does represent a life. We've got our middle opponent to 16, we've got our right opponent to 13, and we're at 16, so we are kind of in a danger zone because of our top left opponent being at 31, but we're at this point we're feeling very strong. We're going to wake up with 6, 8, 10, 11 mana, 12, 13 on Ancient Tomb, and we've got Exsanguinate in hand, and Kakusho dies and gives us 15 life. Feeling pretty groovy about it. However, what that does mean is that the target is on our head. You know, we are in danger at this point. Man, I've had so much fun playing this deck. I really have. I know I say that in every Commander video when I build a new deck, but this one is like very me. This is not, you know, like the Calyx Brawl deck tech. It was not really a normal strategy that I would play, but I had a surprising amount of fun with it because it ended up being stronger than I thought it was going to be. But this one in particular was stronger than I thought it was going to be. Kroxa was fun and had so much synergies that we could play with, and just that like deadly group hug ended up being a very fun way to go. Colonian Hydra over there is going to be a problem because it is a trampler. Our 2/2 zombies aren't looking that sweet as blockers with old Trampley over there, especially since those counters are going to be doubling. Play Chandra, get some extra mana. We can also exile the top, deal 2 damage to everybody. We've got some mana. We get a little greedy here. We could have Exsanguinated right there, gotten back in this, but it wouldn't have killed anybody. It just would have brought us up a life total. We were just going to burn each opponent for 2, but we see Animate dead. So suddenly we're going, all right, what can we bring back that is going to be a huge payoff? Gisela, not in love with Gisela. Let's act like we're gonna cast it so that we can actually see our targets. Nah, I can't gain any life over there. Runescarred, we could go get a card from our library. That's pretty sweet. Sanguine Bond, that's an enchantment. We can't play that anyway. Nothing good there. Nothing good in ours that we can't already bring back easily anyway. But we do see the Archfiend of Despair. Now, it says lost life. If they lost any life, they will lose that much life again. We've got Exsanguinate in hand. We can cast this, play the Archfiend, get it onto our side of the battlefield. It's another blocker in case Trampley up there gets a little big for the britches and wants to come at us. And we can get a double Exsanguinate and go for the double KO of our middle and right opponents, and then we'll deal with the opponent on the left. But we think we can stomp over him at that point because we've got more resources. We haven't even gotten some kind of weird Kroxa chain going of where they're discarding cards every turn. Waste Not, every time a card is discarded, is going to be giving us value. We're feeling good. We're feeling good, especially since whatever we Exsanguinate for, we're going to gain 3 times that and put us way above our opponent. So we've got 5 down there. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, -2, 9. And our Archfiend gets utter-ended. So, that's fine. We can still Exsanguinate for 10. We couldn't, at this point, KO, get the double KO, which we really wanted, but we got greedy. That's okay. And so the Archfiend is now dead. Next turn, we can Exsanguinate for 10 and get back in this. We are at 13. We are in the danger zone. So we've got to take care of business next turn. Next turn's only goal is gain life. And then we see something funky. Mother of Runes is tapping. The Indestructible 10/10 is gaining protection. What does it gain protection from? We are the only flyer. It's gaining protection from black. What's happening? What's going on? Why is our middle opponent tapping out and coming at us? Oh, man. That's going to be 10 damage that we can't do anything about. Our Kakusho strategy has suddenly failed. We wanted to gain that 15 life. That's the whole reason we paid the 6 life to go get Kakusho. So we're at 3. Trampley over there suddenly is eyeing us. We have a whole lot of nothing. No interaction in hand. We got mana. Can't do anything about that. We got Kakusho. If we can get Kakusho to die. We're looking at their board right now. We got a 5/5 Trampler, a 4/4 Trampler. They're playing a Soul Ring. Okay. All right. They can maybe add some counters to the 5/5 Trampler. Let's see. All right. Blind Obedience is making the Soul Ring come in tapped. We're getting real nervous. We're at 3. Not a lot of options for us. We really need to untap so that we can get that Exsanguinate going. They probably know that we're setting up for some big move. Now Corpsejack Menace is hitting the battlefield. So +1/+1 counters, if they're getting landed on the player, are getting doubled. This is not good. So now when Colonian Hydra attacks, it's getting so many counters dumped on top of it. So it's going to double them on each creature. And those get doubled by Corpsejack. And it's swinging at us, damn it, for 17. We know that we have to block with everything because, we can count 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We don't have 17 block damage there. We gotta hope that the Kakusho dying triggers something. Spoiler alert, it does not. This game was so fun, and I normally, I was the first one out, obviously, but I think it was the right move for our opponents to absolutely target us down. We lose at -2. It was the right move for our opponents to target us down right there. We had them next turn. But man, what a fun EDH deck to play. We were so close on that one. It was such an exciting game. We started off really slow. We built up this huge thing. Then the huge board wipe, sacrifice board wipe happened. We rebuilt faster than anybody and had a target on our head. We got a little greedy. Probably could have taken out at least one opponent, but we wanted that double KO. And they ended up punishing us rightly. I've had an absolute blast building Theros Beyond Death Legends into Commanders. Let me know which one you want to see next. I would love to build that deck and play it on the channel and see if we can make something out of it. Appreciate you watching. Like I said, if you liked the video, if you wouldn't mind hitting subscribe, we'd really appreciate it. If you want to support us further, we got a Patreon. The link is down in the description below. And if you want to hang out with us, we're streaming most Tuesday and Thursday evenings over on Twitch. Let me know what you want to see next of Commander. I'll catch you later.